Yes, we are. Well, greetings, everyone. Just going to make sure that this is rearing and gearing and good to go. Trying to unlock this device. That's right. Okay. So hoping. What a weird week this has been, y'all. Hence why I decided a few days ago that I really wanted to go live and have some palaver with all of you in the YOU the Ka-Tet. As weird as this has all been, it's almost been kind of surreal, right? You know what I'm saying? Just make sure. All right, let's get the volume down. There's obviously a delay. Delightful. There we go. Okay. Now let's just get in this chatty place. Live chat. But yeah, I hope everybody is safe and not too crazy panicked by everything. I have definitely seen the connotations that people have gone with here. Why can I not get to the live chat? Live chat. There we go. Ah, Malito is here. First to arrive. Yes, we were a couple minutes after the 1909 hours Eastern time, which is when I like to start these. And that's because after daylight savings, everything moved back on me an hour everywhere else in the country, pretty much, except for here in the deadly desert of Arizona. So yeah, interesting stuff, everybody. But yeah, I guess I will give it a couple minutes for everybody to filter in. And yes, long days and pleasant nights, obviously, to everybody before we get started here. So hopefully volume is good. And yeah, Malito, I know it's mad crazy where you are, right, man? If I'm not mistaken. I mean, it's critical over here. Yeah, crazy. I know. I've seen, like, if I'm not mistaken, the whole country is on lockdown, right? Like all of Italia, and I know there was already like economic problems to begin with and stuff. And so this is there's only 9 cases of this stuff, as we'll call it here, in Arizona, at least so far. But that's the thing; like, not a lot of people have been tested for this stuff. We don't want this video to get demonetized, so I will either refer to it as like CV19 or something like that. Yeah, man, but surreal and crazy, and I hope all of you are safe and feeling healthy and all that stuff. But yeah, now that I see some people starting to come through, Angela Hardwick says, "Hey, all the stores in Michigan are out of stock. I work at a distribution warehouse, and it was a long day yesterday." Gunslinger, it's Walter. All right, over 17,000 cases here. Over a GZ death toll. Wow, that is absolutely insane. Luis Almodovar says, "All hail to the greatest show on the Master of Horror and everything in between. Mr. Fire and crew, as always, long days and pleasant nights, people." Okay, well, we have 12 watching, and yeah, this was I only kind of came up with this idea of trying to do this like a couple days ago. It was originally going to be a taped episode this week and stuff, and I know that we just did a live episode, covering the book stuff and everything, but yeah, I guess, yes, Ben Groom is alive. Yeah. Cecil and I went and we braved the theater the other day to go see The Hunt, which I actually had a ton of fun with. So, yeah, but without further ado, since we've got around a dozen people watching already, let's get this show on the road. So, long days and pleasant nights, fellow travelers along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the tower as Jaime in Fuego. And if it please you, join me here for a bit of palaver on Hail to Stephen King, Cy King, El Rey, my favorite author, as y'all know, and hopefully author that you hold in high esteem if you are joining the proceedings here. So gracias, everyone, and welcome to the horror show. Obviously, you can just call me Fuego for short. And if for whatever reason you are just stumbling upon this through the interwebs of the YouTubies, yes, I am very humbled and honored to have your presence here. As you can see by that tower of tomes behind me, El Rey is indeed my favorite author. I have read all of his books and cannot wait for If It Bleeds coming out in May. But obviously, we know the world is weird right now. The world is very weird. And I mean, besides everything else that was going on, stores being out of toilet paper here in various parts of the United States and water being gone and all this other stuff. And I'm not here to get political. I'm not here to throw out social agendas or anything like that. I will contend, at least the one thing that I will say about my stance on this stuff is that I feel like the media is most definitely pouring fuel on the proverbial fire. However, it is very serious in various parts of the world. Most notably, my buddy Malito, who's out in Italia, and yes, as he addressed at the beginning in the live chat here, that stuff. I mean, that is obviously where things are just insane. Sort of discussion and palaver and whatnot, but it's definitely a very serious thing. And I mean, as sad as it is, I didn't feel the seriousness until they started canceling sports and movies. That's when I was just like, okay, if those sort of moneymakers that are so integral to not just the American economy here, but the global economy in a lot of ways. I mean, Hollywood and the NBA, I mean, come on, man. Those are big time things globally. So when they're shutting down, when they're halting the release of films, which is, from what I was reading today, estimated to cost Hollywood in upwards of $20+ billion with marketing that's already been done for all of these different films. I mean, Cecil and I had press for A Quiet Place 2 on Monday, and obviously that's been taken off the release schedule. In fact, pretty much everything has been taken off the release schedule for the foreseeable future, which is really bonkers. Concerts I was supposed to go to have been canceled. Live Nation has halted all touring, all this different stuff. So it's the apocalypse. It's the end times, right? I had obviously, we've heard that, but that's not, this is meant to be a diversion discussion about my favorite author, and one that obviously I hope you all hold in high esteem, who has written about the apocalypse before, or at least, the end of life as we know it. I don't necessarily think that's the case here. I'm trying to be hopeful. I'm trying to be a glass half full kind of guy, but you do have to be a realist to a degree and stuff. But yeah, so King has written, everybody knows his most notorious thing that he wrote about as far as like end of the world apocalyptic stuff goes. It's right up there. It's hovered in my top 3 since I read it. Honestly, since I watched the miniseries for it back in, I believe it was 1994, maybe, I want to say. I should really know this stuff offhand. But yeah, the 90s miniseries of The Stand was my first orientation with the story. And then a number of years later, I came back around and I actually read the book. And the book is fantastic. I've read all 3 versions of the book because there technically are 3 versions. There's the original one that King put out in the late 70s. And that is not on my shelf because I only have a book club version of it. It's a little bit smaller. I think it looks like crap compared to all the regular full-size hardcovers that I have. And so that was the original significantly edited version of The Stand, which is all about a genetically engineered super flu of sorts, that is unleashed from a government facility. And back in the 70s, germ warfare was real shit, man. I mean, it was a big thing. Basically post World War II, germ warfare. We heard murmurings and whisperings and things have come out, as time has gone by about the full extent of what, when, the Cold War was basically going down and people were just trying to concoct the most effed up stuff, to basically combat each other. And in a lot of ways, I think like germ warfare is, there's equal, if not more cruelty in that, even compared to like a nuclear attack, or something of that nature. And, but yeah, so in King's, ominous and eponymous story. Yes, it somehow gets out of this government facility, spreads across the entire planet, kills 99% of the population. And yes, we know that warring factions essentially form. The good people, yes, they gravitate towards, initially towards Hemingford Home in Nebraska, and then a small group of them, along with various others, in turn migrate to Boulder. And, all the bad peeps who are being tempted to some regard by none other than the walking dude himself, Randall Flagman. Yes, they make their way over to Sin City. Ironically enough, they're in Vegas. And it's essentially, it's an impending final battle of sorts at various scales. And it's a very intriguing story, but the characters are still written in such a fascinating fashion in The Stand. And that's why it has, even after reading all of these, it's still in my top 3. It's number 2, as I most recently did my ranking of every single Stephen King major published book. That was my 200th episode celebration here, because yeah, this show has been going on for over 3 years now and over 200 episodes. It's pretty exciting, and I'm stoked, and it's dope that all of you are still along for the ride after all this time, or for the new people who have jumped on the bandwagon. I mean, the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group is at almost 800 peeps, and I see so much awesome, terrific, constant palaver that I can't even keep track of or interact with the full extent of. It's just slowly becoming impossible. There's bigger Facebook groups out there, with tens of thousands of members and stuff like that. But I still contend that our Ka-Tet is very closely knit, has amazing kef. And but I mean, The Stand is my number 2, but it's depending on what I've reread, it's between that and Pet Sematary. It is a definitive number 3 as of further consideration about certain plot points in the story. But yeah, The Stand is it's a seminal story. And the thing that's so ironic about just all of the weird things that are going on in the real world, in Keystone Earth, if we want to go to that degree, is that we're supposed to be getting The Stand miniseries on CBS All Access later this year. It was supposed to be coming out this fall, but I speculate, and various other people have here on, Hail to Stephen King's Facebook group and a lot of other constant readers that I've spoken with, there's a lot of skepticism about, look what happened with The Hunt, that movie I was just mentioning earlier, and the fact that, last fall when it was originally supposed to come out, we were coming off of all of those mass shootings in various parts of America and other parts of the world and stuff like that. And so even though it didn't really, it's a satire, that movie, and I feel like there is a lot of misconceptions about it, especially after having seen it and really enjoying it. But it's still, hey, would it be in bad taste to put out something like The Stand later this year when that sort of real world shite is actually going down? I don't know. Sound off, everybody in the chat. Give your thoughts. Do you think it is in good taste? Do you think it should be pushed back? I mean, they finished shooting it. So it's not like one of these productions where I'm sure everybody has heard that, besides delaying the release of movies, there's a lot of stuff, both television and film, that was in the process of shooting that, due to the fear of this 19, which, boy, isn't that irony in just the weirdest regard, the fact that, 19 and, The Stand's connections with the tower and, the importance of the number 19 in so much of Stephen King's writing and all this stuff. And the fact that, this sort of thing is going on in 19. I mean, the surreal aspect of it all is not lost on me. That's for damn sure. So I don't know, in good taste and bad taste, but what does leave a bad taste in my mouth and makes me very sad is the fact that, more so than anything, obviously, the loss of lives to this, those who are afflicted by all this real world stuff, but also everybody who is working on these television and these films and stuff like that, and also, tied in with all these other industries that have been affected. It's really, there's a big economic aspect to this that's really nuts to me. And so, yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind. And, but yeah, a lot of TV shows, have been halted. Stranger Things 4 They stopped filming. They don't know when they're going to reconvene. I heard Lisi's story, which was filming for Apple TV, Apple Plus TV, whatever the heck they call it, where King has written all those scripts and is actually embellishing and just adding supplemental stuff to that story with Julianne Moore. Can't wait to see that. But that will no doubt be delayed, just like a lot of other King stuff that's in development. I would imagine it's gonna, this much more important stuff is definitely going to put the brakes on a lot. And so, I'm gonna scroll through the chat and see where it's gone since, and it looks like it's kind of coming to a halt. So that means I'm assuming y'all are just listening to me, but which is cool. Malito says second country in the world after China for people who tested positive. Yeah. Gunslinger says they for just film real life for the new Stand series. Yeah, right. I mean, when life imitates art, imitates life, and just the wheel of Ka, right? Everybody, how everything is so cyclical. Corey, my dude, what is up? Very disappointed that we had so much going on with pre-production for Dylan's New Nightmare in May that we were not able to go out as press for Mad Monster in Carolina, because I was really, really looking forward to seeing you again, homie. It was great to meet you last year, obviously. But it was just not in the cards. There's too much stuff going on. Okay, Ben Grimm says, I like The Hunt too. Yeah, I'm glad you dug it, man. Thank God Fuego, it's still live streaming. I really like Fuego. Malito, you my dude, man. I'm just, stay safe as you can, and with everything that's going down. Okay, this is a new one. Red Vitamin Blue says, may not be the right time for airing The Stand in the middle of a pandemic that is causing panic in people. Yeah, and that's where I'm just asking everybody, would it be in poor taste for them even in the fall? Because this, from what we're hearing, this is going to be like kind of a permanent thing, like the flu. It's going to, with flu season every year. And, I know it's different in different parts of the world, dependent upon like season, temperature, and all these different things like that. But, here in America, at least, we have flu season, and that's why people get flu shots and all this other stuff. I know that they are hard at work. The last thing that I saw was somebody from China, a scientist over there who worked on the SARS stuff, had mentioned that, it's apparently they're expecting in June, to have like a better handle on all this different stuff. But so nonetheless, I do think that in a lot of ways, just to have it out in the same calendar year would probably not be the best idea, because as I mentioned earlier, the media is already just pouring so much fuel on the goddamn fire in a lot of ways. And yet it is very important for this stuff to get out. But just coverage of it alone, it is increasing the hysteria in certain parts of the world where stuff isn't as prevalent. Panic is got to be very, very real in a lot of other areas of the world and stuff like that, and with good reason. But not going to be going down. Justin Perry says, hey, what's up, my friend? Que pasa, man? Long days, pleasant nights, obviously. Ben Grimm says, now would be a good time for YouTube as people will be home, for YT as people will be home and watching more. I know I've watched more than usual. Yeah, and that's what's on, like, a lot of the, it's so funny because like the sports world is totally screwed because they don't really have anything to talk about anymore. And so they are really stretching. At least in the entertainment world, there's still things coming out on demand and, home release and, TV shows. I know Westworld's about to start, things like that. So, and plus there's all kinds of cool stuff that you could get caught up on, and that's why I'm here to say, read a Stephen King book, or go back and, watch It really makes you wonder. I know people are watching stuff like Pandemic or Contagion, I think is the name of the film that was a Soderbergh film, if I'm not mistaken. But the one that I always think back to was, a little monkey, in Outbreak in the 90s, the one with Dustin Hoffman and stuff. That's the one that I think about more so, because that was when, like, AIDS was still like a very big thing and not as treatable as a kid. But so that's the thing. Do you really? I feel like people are in some ways drawn to seeing stuff that's similar, but at least in the King regard, that's why I wanted to talk about a few other stories that he's done of the apocalyptic variety, because maybe it would be better if you have the inherent desire to watch something like that or read something like that, maybe have a fantasy element or something that's just so so vastly different. And so I, having talked about The Stand already, that's why I really wanted to also talk about Cell, because I think Cell, while the adaptation was a bit on the pedestrian side, and I was disappointed with King, who scripted it, changing the ending, I love that book. And the fact that he dedicated it to George Romero, who I had the blessed opportunity to interview a number of years ago in Kentucky at Scarefest, 2015, I want to say. It was short. It was just a year or so before he passed away. But yeah, it was a very insightful, interesting interview. And he very obviously was credited by King in the dedication at the beginning of Cell because of the fact that it's very much like the Crazies, but with like a different twist on it. And I really dig that Crazies remake as well. You know, Ramirez is good in some ways. I hate to say it, in some ways I like the remake a little bit better. Very similar to how I feel about Dawn of the Dead, and the remake that Zack Snyder and James Gunn worked on. If you guys have not seen that, talk about a crazy apocalyptic story. I mean, that's the thing. I feel like if people want that sort of entertainment, just make it different than our own. And that's why, something like Cell, or even something like, The Walking Dead or Dawn of the Dead or something like that, zombies and whatnot. I mean, if you want to indulge in something that, has similar themes to just worst case scenario of what's going on our planet, throw a fantasy element into it, throw an element that we know could not transpire. So we hope, fingers firmly crossed. But yeah, Cell is dope. And, I didn't mind the movie. It's just, I think I probably had such high expectations for it. Cecil and I reviewed it here on the channel. It got a very limited release in theaters. A lot of people were really pumped because it was the reteaming of the King work that has like ever happened. It's fantastic. I love it. But this not so much. I was disappointed with Cell because of how much I love the book. And I mean, the book had, since they're not quite zombies, they're like rage zombies almost. And they're like rage possessed kind of people after this. So if you're not familiar with Cell, because it is underseen and underrated, it's definitely, there's a lot of those mid 2000s Stephen King books that when I was going around to thrift stores and to Goodwill and different discount places like that and picking up these hardcovers, or just the treasure hunt of trying to find them for like $4 or whatever it is, which was a very fun experience, obviously. Cell was definitely one of the ones that I saw on a lot of different shelves, tons of different ones, in fact. And so it's got this iconic cover, if you're looking at the hardcover at least, where, I mean, there's one of those old like flip cell phones. And I should just take it off the shelf. Why the hell not? Why the hell not? Everything is so meticulously put together on this flipping shelf, everybody. But yeah, as opposed to just describing it, when I have all of these books here, I mean, why can't it just be full on show and tell, right? But I've always been a real big fan of this cover. I think it's really, really cool. So check it. Yeah. And another thing that just occurred to me is how like it's straight up almost like the Outsider cover with, I mean, granted, it's the reflection in the blood, but just to give you a little bit more of what I'm talking about, like look at the reflection in the puddle. See what I mean? Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. But yeah, Cell is, if you're not familiar, basically there is this artist, and I'm trying to remember I think he's in Boston, if I'm not mistaken. But I want to say, let's double check for you, Simo. Let's see. Yep, 2006. My memory is not totally jacked. But yeah, so this guy is one of those people, and there's still a few of them out there, but there's way more in like the ship of cell phones, and there was all of those just like, I don't know, suspicions, and maybe it was just paranoia, old wives' tales, whatever, where they're like, oh, they're going to give you cancer, the weird like radioactive waves or something, the energy emanating from these devices and stuff, and that's something that I kind of have issues with at times too, because if you have a functioning cell phone, and I'm notorious for having cell phones like bust on me all the time because, I leave them on my nightstand. And, in the night, sometimes I, wake up and I look to see what time it is and I just plop it back on and it slides off, it falls, cracks, and screen gets messed up, malfunctions, whatever the hell. Yes, I'm one of those people who's very bad with cell phones and with busting them up. I've had the same damn iPhone, that I've refurbished and repurposed over and over and over and stuff. And there is something very freeing about just not being constantly connected. And so that's what our main guy here in Cell, he kind of feels that way. And so he doesn't own that device. And lo and behold, there is a weird, there's a weird pulse, I guess you could say, that just happens to go across the planet, essentially. And everybody who is on their cell phone or using it or whatever, at the time, they all basically get their brains scrambled and they turn into these rage-filled, crazy killers of sorts. And so basically, our main character teams up with this slightly older gay man, if I remember correctly. That they basically they team up and they start making their way on foot, up towards up through New England, towards his home in Maine. And it's an interesting story in a lot of ways, and it has really deep discussion about hive mentality and just the collective stuff that happens with all of these crazy people at this particular point. Most notably, some of the most interesting scenes in the entire book, and they're very well done in the film as well, is where they get to this university and they become acquainted with this professor. And this professor has been observing this congregation that is basically going down on the football field every single evening. And it's almost like flocks of birds kind of thing, and or I don't know, a nest of ants or something like that. It's very very fascinating stuff, and the film kind of delves into it just a little bit. But I will also say that as far as the whole world going to hell in this particular book in Cell, it's just fascinating to me in that regard because of the fact that it's got one of the most heartbreaking deaths of a character that I can ever remember. And the thing that's so just soul crushing about it is that it doesn't even tie in with the main antagonists, I guess you could say, of the story. And it's just, our lead is I struggled to recall his name, unfortunately, but well, how about I just read you guys the description right here? This sums it up quite nicely. There's a reason Cell rhymes with hell. Nah, that's some cheesy marketing, I will agree. But on August 1st, God is in his heaven. The stock market stands at 10,140. Most of the planes are on time. And Clayton Riddell, an artist from Maine, is almost bouncing up Bolston Street in Boston. He's just landed a comic book deal that might finally enable him to support his family by making art instead of teaching it. He's already picked up a small but expensive gift for his long-suffering wife, and he knows just what he'll get for his boy Johnny. Why not a little treat for himself? Clay's feeling good about the future, and that changes in a hurry. The cause of the devastation is a phenomenon that comes to be known as the pulse, and the delivery method is a cell phone. Everyone's cell phone. Clay and the few desperate survivors who join him suddenly find themselves in the pitch black night of civilization's darkest age, surrounded by chaos, carnage, and a human horde that has been reduced to its basest nature and then begins to evolve. There's really no escaping this nightmare, but for Clay, an arrow points home to Maine, and as he and his fellow refugees make their harrowing journey north, they begin to see crude signs confirming their direction. Cash whack equals no foe. A promise, perhaps, or a threat? There are 193 million cell phones in the United States alone, and you better believe that number has changed in the last 14 years, by God. Who doesn't have one? Stephen King's utterly gripping, gory, and fascinating novel doesn't just ask the question, can you hear me now? It answers it with a vengeance. Yeah, it's a little cheese, but nonetheless, I really dig this book, guys. It's I think I ranked it relatively high when I was doing my decade countdown all the different King stuff. So basically, if you're new to the proceedings here, or if you just were unaware, since I have so many episodes of this program that airs weekly and used to air twice a week. But yeah, I did countdowns. So I did decade countdown. So I did, countdown of the 70s books by King, countdown of the 80s books by King, countdown of the 90s, countdown of the 2000s. And I do recall this ranking relatively high in the 2000s. I mean, that like some of the most underrated stuff in the 2000s for me is like this, Just After Sunset, Doohickey. That's another one that I think is really, really underrated. And so, yeah, it's really worth seeking out. And I'm sure you could find it for probably next to nothing. On either Amazon or eBay or something like that. And yeah, I think I got this at Goodwill for like $3. It's pretty dope in that regard. So those are at least the two biggies. I would say there is a third big one that I want to mention, and I will do that here in a moment. But I'm just putting my eyes back on the chat. Sarah C says, "Hello, my dude. Everyone's favorite Stephen King noob is here." Oh, that must be Miss Counts. What is up, Sarah? Long days and pleasant nights to you, obviously. Cell is criminally underrated, says Malito. Yes, and I most definitely contend that it is. Okay, Ccon1001 says, spending my time quarantined on a Hail to Stephen King binge. Love your videos, Fuego. Oh, well, I'm, if it's a confirmed sort of thing, obviously, I mean, rest well and do all you can to heal up. And if it's just a possibility, I'm, prayers, positivity, all of that stuff, Ccon. And yes, much love out to you there. Austin Bennell, the football field kill is one of my favorites. Yeah, there's a lot of yeah. Oh man, it's on a very interesting scale. Like this, as far as just like straight up horror, as opposed to thriller, or as opposed to, I mean, this was a real return to form from King, especially since like he had just got done, if I remember, with the stretch run of finishing the Dark Tower stuff. And I mean, he had done things like, I guess, Black House Dreamcatcher, From a Buick 8. That's definitely a horror. So it does feel in the vein of Ramiro, and hence the dedication and the inspiration. Obviously, King has often worn his influences on his sleeve in that regard, and I really appreciate it. So yes. See what else we got here. All right. More from Red Vitamin Blue. Just reread Cell a few weeks ago. I forgot that the story travels through parts of my neck of the woods. Kind of adds another layer of immersion when you know the towns and streets that are visited. That's quite intriguing. I mean, I've never really been to that area of the country. I mean, I've been to Boston, back when I was a kid and stuff. I have my aunt and my cousin Catherine. Her and her husband are over there, and they're always trying to get me to visit and stuff. And I mean, Maine, I have been long wanting to. I made my pilgrimage to see King in person a few years ago when I went and I did my video covering his book tour for ironically the next thing that we are going to talk about here, which is his third like kind of large scale kind of apocalyptic, because it like goes there, but it's not like Cell and The Stand, and the fact that those are point of no return stories, so to speak. Whereas the one that I'm about to, get into and discuss a little bit, that I'm not anywhere near as big of a fan of in comparison, that does kind of have a could we pick up the pieces sort of thing and whatnot. But yes, that is, I've long wanted to go to Maine. Marsha Parker's originally from Maine. Marsha Parker, MPH, as I so affectionately call her here on the Horror Show. She's originally from Maine. She's been here in Arizona for a long time at this point. But yeah, I've never been, man. And I definitely have to make that pilgrimage, that journey. So stoked to see RJ Price here, man. I bet you were so excited when oh boy, I can't remember if it was Dan Corey, maybe. I can't recall, but when McCannon's Swan Song was shown in that picture of stuff that was purchased, RJ, I bet you were just pumped. I know you actually preferred that book to The Stand, and I purchased it on Audible recently, and it's a monster. So it's all about trying to find the time, obviously. All right. So he says, "What's up, Ka-Tet family? I hate working through these live streams. This is definitely one I would like to watch and interact with, as apocalypse stories are my favorite. Yeah, they're definitely fascinating, and I agree. Cell is one of his most underrated stories and one of my all-time favorite post-accident. I wish the movie would have followed the book a little better. Yeah, and the thing about the movie, RJ, that I still find frustrating about Cell is that King wrote the script for for Cell, and so that's why I did a video. I remember a few months ago, or maybe it was almost a year ago. Yeah, it was almost a year ago because it was during the Phoenix Film Festival. I remember very distinctively doing press for that festival when the announcement of Apple Plus streaming doing Lacey's story, and I did this whole video about should Stephen King adapt his own work, because more often than not, a lot of people contend that other people handling his stuff works better. I mean, there's only a few adaptations that I think in some ways are better than the source material. And it was often stuff by Darabont, and some would argue, Flanagan. And so, if either of those guys are due to Stephen King adaptation, man, and I have the utmost faith, and Muschietti to a lesser degree. But I mean, in my estimation, it's all, if it's either Darabont or Flanagan, I'm completely sold on the idea and stuff. And so yes, okay, what else we got? But yeah, King changed the ending to Cell very significantly. And there's no, boy, is it I think it's You'll Never Walk Alone, Liverpool, maybe something like that. I don't know. It's a weird ending with kind of getting caught up in the fracas and circular running cause a wheel, right? So yes, okay. Okay, this is a new name here. Alexander Eidi, sorry. Just came in this chat from Norway. Last time when you was talking about Thinner, I did not have time to ask you, so going to do now. Have you listened to the audiobook of Thinner? I loved it. So that's obviously a quick little diversion from the topic at hand. But yes, Alexander, I did, and Norway, best, Norway, and I mean, basically anywhere in Scandinavia, man, the best metal on the flipping planet, Norway and Sweden. And I know there's a little rivalry of sorts in the black and the death metal and stuff like that. But I love the audiobook of Thinner. Joe Manganiello, I want to say. He did so much voice work on The Simpsons, and he's acted in a lot of these mafia type movies. And yes, him playing Tony's mobster that he consults for just some assistance with these gypsies and stuff. He reads the hell out of that. I've read Thinner a few times, and I still enjoy reading it. It's a very brisk read. It's barely over 300 pages and stuff. But yeah, man, I in some ways like listening to Joe read it to me even better, because it adds so much authenticity and style. And I mean, it just, especially with where the story veers after about 100 or so pages, once the character that he portrayed in film pops up, it's pretty dope, man. It's pretty dope. Okay, RJ says, yes, I meant definitely. Yeah, I figured as much. Good, sir. I'm stoked that RJ is driving around listening to us here. It's greatly appreciated. My dude Duel, howdy, and good evening, folks. Horns up to you, Sir Robert. Look forward to seeing you Sunday, man. Hope you're going good out there, feeling strong and whatnot. Okay, Austin says the movie was disappointing, but I do love John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson together in King movies. Yeah, so do I. And that's really, I mean, and it wasn't that the performances were particularly bad, honestly, from anybody. The guy who played the professor, really solid. I forget her character's name, but the young girl in it, she sold me on stuff that happens. Yeah, sad stuff. And various others, even the smaller supporting people that they get stood up with at the bar and whatnot. I mean, I didn't really think there were particularly bad performances or missing links or stuff like that, but it was the alteration of certain things, which is where I bat kind of a skeptical eye at Sir King, and I'm like, what happened, man? What were you thinking? I don't know. No say. Okay, this is a new name. Larry Scruggs says, I feel like King just gave up writing Cell the book and sent it to his publisher. Okay, well, that's a thought. All right, Sarah says, not much is up, just living my best life. Well, that's the power of positivity that we need in this wacky world that we find ourselves in the midst of right now. But so moving on from sale, which I will, as opposed to trying to stuff it back on the shelf, I'm gonna gently set it back down there. The third major release that I wanted to discuss, because there's like a couple shorts and stuff that I'll just do in the lightning round possibly at the very end. But let's eat. So you guys can't really see in many of the filmings, but this is my third selection for kind of an apocalyptic-y Psy-King book, and that is none other than his collaboration with his son Owen that I actually went on the book tour to go see. So when I made that video interviewing all the different, CRs and fans and stuff that were lined up in Naperville, I believe it was, just outside of Chicago, when I made my aforementioned pilgrimage and stuff, that was the book tour for none other than this book, Sleeping Beauties. This is a very dope release from Cemetery Dance that I finally received recently, and I think I even did an unboxing of it when I first got it. But yeah, so Sleeping Beauties is a very catastrophic, apocalyptic sort of story in the fact that you essentially imagine if all of a sudden you had all of the women in the world start to just fall asleep and have these weird like cocoon type stuff like form over their faces, almost like a fuzzy white mask that is very similar to like spider webbing or something of that nature. And that's essentially what just randomly starts happening all over the world in Sleeping Beauties. And the similarity to Cell in the fact, though, is that, okay, all the women are going to sleep. They can be woken up, though. But if they are woken up, they essentially turn, just like in Cell, into these rage monster, bloodthirsty killers, non-cognizant, really, just inflicting insane harm and stuff. I mean, there's something with a mother and her son who cleans pools, if I remember correctly, and a blender. Yeah, let's just wrap your head around that and stuff. And so obviously the entire planet is sent into absolute just insanity, and it's like total upheaval without having women around, and more so than anything because of the fact that women are the nurturers, they're the caregivers, they bring life, and without any women, I mean, it's like, what will happen to society? Obviously it will eventually crumble if there's no means of reproduction. You can't, I mean, I'm sure there is some gross like Handmaid's Tale doomsday scenario-y type stuff of if this situation couldn't have been remedied in some fashion of, boy, I can only imagine like chained up artificial insemination insanity, for birthing that would have eventually happened. And, maybe it would have been fascinating if King explored that sort of possibility by making the book longer and having more time transpire. Because if I'm not mistaken, this all is encompassed, this entire book, in less than a year. And so without spoiling stuff, there's things that are figured out, okay? But the weirdness of this book is that, so while all the men and men like butt heads and all this other stuff, and they're much more aggressive a lot of the time and everything, while the men are trying to pick up the pieces in this crumbling world, all of the women who have fallen asleep and are in these weird, like, Sleeping Beauty, cocoony, whatever type states, they have reawoken in this weird alternate dimension where time doesn't transpire in the same fashion as it does on Keystone Earth in the real world and stuff. And so they all band together, and there's like weird things that happen if they die on that side. They die in, like, it's a lot of stuff to explain, but I don't know. It was a really great premise that, in a lot of ways, and I've talked about this at length previously on this show, so I don't want to beat a red-headed dead horse, but it's a story that I thought had a great premise, but the execution was not so good. And after reading King's Kid, who is fantastic, i.e. Joe Hill, and granted, I haven't read Owen by himself, But that's kind of where my finger points a little bit, man. I don't know. It's drawn out. It has a large extended cast of characters, but I feel very similar to Sleeping Beauties as I do about Under the Dome. It's not a cast of characters that I connect with or find that captivating. Although there is this like there's a Joker type character in this. And Joker, I mean, not, like Joker, like, uh, Jack Nicholson or Heath Ledger or more recently Joaquin. But, and Cesar Romero, let's not forget him, man. Or Mark Hamill. I mean, goddamn, there's been some really, really terrific Jokers over the years. But, Joker as in like a deck of cards in the fact that, you know, somebody who is almost like a third party situation where you're not really sure good, evil, other, whatever. And it's this character Eve, and she is a woman who is connected with the destruction of this meth lab in the book. And like she gets jailed, but like she's not falling asleep. So she's like the only woman who is not succumbing to what is transpiring with every other female on the planet. And so the biggest disappointment for me was we don't really get proper explanation about the nature of her character. She is that enigma, she is that mystery. And this is where, once again, I give a lot of credit to the premise, and I do actually like the first few hundred pages of Sleeping Beauties quite a bit. It's cool, it's interesting, it's inventive. It's what the story segues into, where it loses me, and Eve is the most fascinating character in it, and she's really in a lot of ways like more of a supporting player, And so the reason I am doubling down on all this information and on my affinity for at least the idea behind this is that there are two different projects currently in development to adapt and, from what I've heard, expand on Sleeping Beauties. There's one for the AMC network. AMC is actually turning it into a television series, although, once again, to circle back to CV-19 and everything, I mean, it's like, when will it start filming? How much will be stalled? And, what is going to go down with regards to that? And plus, that being another, excuse me, oh boy. Being another story that's dealing with like an apocalyptic magnitude of, of stuff. That's where I mean, it's not as in poor taste as The Stand, I mean, that's why I said Cell. It's like they're turning into rage zombies, or even in this, once again, this is another thing that I'm not as fond of about the book, is the recycling of rage zombies. It's just only women when they get awakened this time and stuff like that. And Joe Hill has done some very, very original ideas, and but King has never been averse, bless his heart, to taking similar ideas and kind of putting a new spin on them, even if they are his own, And so, it makes me wonder what's going to happen with the project on AMC, because I know Owen was in direct. I think he was writing like some of the episodes, and in conjunction, there's also a comic book that is being worked on. I forget the imprint. I forget if it's IDW or Image or I know it's one of the smaller indies. I know it's not DC or Marvel that's working on it, but they're also adapting it into a comic book as well. And I believe it's the same guy who did this beautiful artwork in this. Oh boy, curious. Looking. This gift edition. Where is the credit to the artist? Is what I'm trying to remember. Okay, cover art is by Jana Heidersdorf. Okay, and then in the interior design, well, it doesn't mention the artist, but so yeah, I know that the same person who worked on a lot of this artwork, whether it is that aforementioned Jennifer or somebody else that I am just not going to burden all of y'all's time by trying to find, that's actually the person who is assisting with the illustration of the comic book. And I think it's not like a small little 4-issue. I want to say it's bigger. It's like 10 to 12, if I recall correctly. But so, yes, I contend that Sleeping Beauties could be adapted in an interesting fashion if they take some stuff and retrofit it. And maybe it just would be a story better told for screen. There are some stories that don't work as well on the page. When they're taken to a visual landscape, they become more compelling. And I will contend that I I feel that potential in Sleeping Beauties, and it's one that I really think could be something a little bit more interesting. And yeah, so I'm going to jump back to the chat room because it does look like there was actual movement. Mataba signals. There was actually a little bit more going on. Says Justin Perry's like, I'm not scared, I swear. Okay, that's a new person here. Scarolina. Okay. Scarolina Viper Blue. Cool. All day I dream about sex. Kicks. Yes, there you go. All day I dream about. Yep, that's it. Humping. Okay, back when corn were actually good. Sorry, guys. Okay, Austin chimes back in with and says, I wish they had more character development in Sleeping Beauties for an epic novel. It does have some great characters, but overall, it is somewhat stagnant. The action scenes make it a solid read. Yeah, and I mean, like the craziness that goes down during the news broadcast is good. The aforementioned, the stuff with like the meth people. But once again, I mean, King writing about the meth stuff, man. I mean, between Under the Dome and why that's in there for whatever reason. I don't know, just personally for me. But yeah, there's some cool beats in there. Some of the stuff at the women's prison and whatnot. I mean, there's interesting beats in the book. But yeah, it's a little thinner on the development of characters. It's plot heavy, it's plot heavy, but character light in a lot of ways, if that makes sense. Josh Murray is in the hizzle, says, what's up? Que paso, dude? Larry Scruggs chiming in once more. Such a great concept. For whatever reason, it just didn't end up landing for me. I'm looking forward to giving it a reread in a few years to try again. And yeah, that's the thing. This is one of the few Psy King books in Sleeping Beauties that I have not read a second time just yet. Well, actually, I guess if you consider listening to the Audible a reread, then yes, I read it in print and then I later on listened to it. So I guess I haven't given it a second listen or a second read, and yeah, it'll definitely happen at some particular point, but maybe I'll hold off till the 5-year anniversary or something. I'm just not really super sure. Okay, Josh Murray says, thank God for this episode of Hail. Been waiting on this all day. Yes, well, I'm happy to be of assistance. And yeah, that's the thing, guys. Like anytime we're doing a live show, it's going to be in the afternoon, right around 1909 hours Eastern. So yeah, 1909, 9 and 1 adds up to 19. You guys see what I'm going for here, but that's essentially just after 7:00 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Pacific. And that's because of the fact that I do often have day job obligations on Saturdays. And yes, hence if I'm not doing a pre-taped show, and this was originally, just to double down on that, until the events of this wacky week and just the inspiration of wanting to do a live show, and just really wanting the palaver and the interaction to ask y'all's opinions about your consideration of the things transpiring in the real world compared with certain stories of kings and certain stories of kings that are in development. Like I mentioned earlier, I have to say what's up to my dude, Jacob Douse, man. Was just going to go to bed and saw this, wasn't aware he was doing a live stream tonight. Yeah, Jacob, it was totally impromptu, man. I didn't even decide on it until like a couple days ago, and I mentioned it to Cecil on Thursday when we went to go see The Hunt. And yeah, it was just with the weird, wacky week that has been this world. I was like, yeah, I think I want to have like just some live palaver and get everybody's thoughts briefly on what's going on, throughout this planet, throughout Keystone Earth, and on top of that, just get some feedback and opinions and stuff like that. But yes, I'm stoked you at least got to stop in briefly, brother, and I hope you are staying safe and healthy and all of that stuff, man. Okay, Carolina Viper Blue says, how about Stephen King drinking Corona beer while writing The Stand? I have no idea if that was the case, but yeah. Oh boy, Corona is Mexican beer. Let's just leave it at that because we don't want to get demonetized here. Okay, I think everyone should read The Stand again. The whole point is relax. Exactly. It's like Frankie says, relax. And that's what I will definitely contend as well. Okay, I think there's a possibility If It Bleeds could be delayed. I really wonder. I think Jacob's sensitive subject matter is what is really prompting a lot. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, going out to bookstores, I mean, so many people have their shit mailed from Amazon or whatever. I don't think something that can be sent directly to your home is going to be affected. The reason the movies were delayed was because they were theatrical releases where people would actually be going out and congregating in close proximity, in large groups, and so that's why these big marquee releases like A Quiet Place Part Two and various others that I mean, me and Cecil and the rest of like the film review community, and I've been watching guys like Stuckman and Johns and various others who are just like, well, guess I'm going to get caught up on everything I missed last year, or what show am I going to binge? While I did go brave the theater for The Hunt with Cecil, I've been trying to finish The Outsider. I was like, you know what? Maybe it's time to finally sign up for a week free trial of HBO Now or Go or whatever the hell it is. And I was like, I'd only watched those first 2 episodes of The Outsider that were free to watch. And I was like, I think I need to watch The Outsider. Sure, let's do it. And that's what I have been cruising through. And I'm about halfway through. And Mendelsohn is terrific. And I really am digging it so far, despite some of the alterations. And we're hoping to do a review on Sunday of that. It's not going to be a official Hail to Stephen King. It's not going to be me here on the set, which is filmed at a different site than the Horror Show Studios. But that's. I mean, it gives you the opportunity to read a book or to get caught up on other Stephen King stuff. Watch a movie or a series, or sign up for the Audience Network and watch Mr. Mercedes. Damn it, something like that. But I would speculate that book releases, just like television and streaming releases, haven't been affected. If it's a finished product and there's no like additional like reshoots, pickups, whatever, that still need to transpire. Finished products that are not going theatrical, whether TV or books or whatever, I do not suspect those will be affected. But it's a weird, wacky world right now, so I don't know. But that's at least where my gut is going in the midst of all of this, because that would be a real shame. I pre-ordered both the If It Bleeds book, and I already pre-ordered the Audible too. So I'm gonna, we're only we're less than 2 months out from that's release now. So May 4th, 5th, 6th, something like that. I believe it's the first week of May. So okay. Oh, is Maryland benign? Wow. Cambion Seraphim going. That's deep cuts if it's the Maryland that I'm assuming you're thinking of, Maryland's Rainbow and some of the Dark Tower type stuff, which, you know what? That's a good segue. That's a good segue into the last thing that I wanted to discuss, since we're at about the hour mark at this particular point. And I've got bandmates coming over. I was personally affected too, guys. My band, Chiron, my horror metal band that I'm in, play drums and assist with vocals. We had a show booked for the 21st of March. And it was going to be after doing some lineup shifting and stuff and working on some new material. We hadn't played a show since the end of October last year. So we took a few months off for the holidays and some other stuff. And we were actually working with a new female vocalist who's going to be assisting with some stuff and add some additional depth to some songs. And so it's been very fun. But we had a show booked for the 21st, and our show was postponed / canceled. They're saying, oh, we're going to try to reschedule it for sometime in the early summer. Who the hell knows? I was supposed to see Local H and Soul Asylum on Sunday. That's not happening. Lots of other stuff. Rage Against the Machine, canceled, postponed. I mean, whatever. We don't even know at this particular point. Pearl Jam, various others. I'm supposed to be going to see My Chemical Romance in September in Chicago for Riot Fest. I'm hoping the world has a better handle on all of this by that extent of time, but you never know. But with the Maryland reference, having been said now, we have to talk about the world having moved on. And we have to talk about the Dark Tower, at least briefly. How can you have a Stephen King apocalyptic story discussion without getting on the path of the beam, man? I mean, you guys know my obsessions. I am, as Eddie Dean so affectionately put it, a Fergan Tower junkie, y'all. And so for that reason, we have to at least discuss the fact that, I mean, it's laid out in the very first Dark Tower book, The Gunslinger. All that's really said is that the world has moved on, and there's still patches of people in this mid world, that Mr. Deschain is roaming through, but there's slow mutants in caves that have obviously been affected by weird radiations and stuff. And at least in the original version of the Gunslinger, before he revised it and updated it, once we got through that that turn of the wheel, so to speak, there was a lot of references to the Gunslinger, the original one, before the revised edition came out, right around the same times as 5, 6, and 7. It basically was implied that Roland's world was in fact our world, whereas King does some retconning, revisionist stuff, in later books. And in turn, we find out, there are other worlds than these, as Jake says, when he's falling in the cave and everything. And but yes, the first the original version of the Gunslinger, it implies that Roland's world was in fact ours, but the world has moved on, and there's all of these hints that are given that, okay, was it like, did we destroy each other with nukes, and now, like the apocalypse transpired, the world moved on, and now we have segued back to an almost pseudo medieval time where there are still old devices left from these old ages of society and mankind and stuff and whatnot. And as you do find out in later stuff, even if Midworld is a different level of the tower, it's a different dimension, whatever you want to classify it as, they still had that sort of doomsday scenario go down, very similar to the stuff in the Talisman as well. And the fact that there's like these bombed out areas, and so society was crumbled and it's splintered. And so I contend that yes, the Dark Tower is most definitely a like post-apocalyptic type of story, because of the fact that think about going to Lud, man, in the wastelands and stuff, and that's a whole place that mirrors New York City to a degree, obviously, and yet it's bombed out and depleted, as to quote Dave Chappelle, or used up and depleted, whatever, from that, the Haters Ball sketch or whatever the hell it was. Good stuff, man. I love Chappelle Show. But yeah, the Dark Tower, most definitely a post-apocalyptic story. And I mean, ties in with The Stand, as everybody knows, from a certain walking dude who shows back up. And so for that reason, why wouldn't like some of Stephen King's most iconic storytelling fall into that post-apocalyptic segment, even if it does veer more so into medieval and fantasy and stuff like that? If you really look at the clues, signs, research the backstory, it's most definitely it's a turn of the wheel in the fact that it's almost like the equivalent of the Dark Ages, and the fact that technology expanded so quickly, and all of these, like I have heard people constantly contend, if not for that major regression in the Dark Ages, if technology had been technology, advancement, science, all these different things were allowed to continue propelling forward, as opposed to the major steps that we took back as far as just global civilized society, in those areas of like Europe and like Asia and whatnot. I mean, we probably would have been taking field trips to the moon and Mars, as when I was a kid in like the 90s and stuff, as opposed to, I mean, we kind of started from scratch almost in a lot of ways, man, and so, yeah, that's almost like, I mean, it's not apocalyptic to that regard, but I mean, yeah, it's just, it's interesting. And yeah, between The Stand and from The Stand to the Dark Tower, I mean, King has had this fascination. It's not something he's constantly written about, but it's one of those things where it seems like, global destruction has always been a topic that has intrigued, captivated him, probably frightened him, and I mean, yeah, I'd say, I mean, yes, Cell and even Sleeping Beauties to a much lesser degree are stories that don't necessarily mirror our particular situation here. And if you want a diversion, those are both. Sleeping Beauties is okay. Cell I think is very solid, and I think Cell is great personally. But yeah, if you want the ultimate diversion that only just hints at a world moving on, if we're going to go back to that term, I mean, guys, yeah, start on your path of the beam through the Dark Tower books. You will not be disappointed if you like an amalgamation. Like if the idea of because there's constant readers, there's casual King fans, then there's CRs, and then there's like the super fans, which are like the Tower junkies who want to read everything that ties in with those books along with them. And so yeah, if you're feeling bold, if you're self-quarantining or whatever and you have the time, there is no better than the present to start that journey, y'all. And I guarantee that you will not regret it. So I'm going to take a look back into the comments. Okay, so not much has really transpired. I feel you. I got gig cancellations too. Big bummer, says Larry Scruggs. Yeah, it's unfortunate. You have not only a great voice, a great presence. Eddie. I appreciate the kind words. And then Jacob says, every time I read any of the Dark Tower novels, Midworld always feels so damn ominous. While reading, it feels like I have my eyes watching me and something is getting ready to attack. Yeah, there is like just that building like urgency, but yet what's the word that I'm looking for? Just, I don't know, tension. And I mean, Jacob's putting it perfectly in the fact that especially as the tension and the power and the uneasiness builds as you get more of the extent of the scope and the scale of everything. I mean, we're talking the intertwinement of every imaginable universe, like that, whether they're super similar or drastically different. I mean, it's about as epic can get, as far as just the way King just like really, I don't know, the way he draws it out. The way he draws it out, and you just keep getting more and more pieces to this much larger puzzle, and you almost think like you can see the full extent of it at particular times, and then it's like, oh no, we're going to put more pieces here, and it just keeps feeling bigger and bigger and bigger, and there is like kind of a daunting, intimidating aspect to that scale and that scope as things play out. So obviously great insights from Jacob anytime he gets to jump in here. And I know it's super late over in the UK, man. So, I'm very, very happy you got to cruise through for a bit here, my dude. Larry Scruggs says, Jacob, agree, especially the first time I read The Gunslinger, such a dark and nasty feeling place. Oh, yeah. It's kind of this world that has moved on is rather depressing, especially the stuff at Tall, man. I mean, just the state of society, it just feels like grungy and dilapidated. The same way, like Tall is on a much smaller scale of like a world that's moved on, post-apocalyptic destruction. Like Tall is like a snapshot, like a little smidget of what you get in fuller scale at Lud, And oh boy, man, it makes me want to read The Wastelands. I have been telling myself, I'm like, okay, when am I going to read The Dark Tower again? I just finally finished acquiring, and that's the thing. Besides the books, guys, if I can't recommend the movie, unfortunately, but the comics, Marvel's Dark Tower comics, like if you're not sure you're quite ready for the scope of 8 books and thousands upon thousands of pages of reading, encompassing all of that. There's still thousands and thousands of pages, but do you want pictures? Do you want some abbreviated, streamlined storytelling that still is very faithful to the source material, beautifully illustrated by Jaime, I want to say? I mean, those Dark Tower books, you can't go wrong, especially the first 5 or 6 of them, the first run, so to speak, when they were adapting just the young Roland stuff from, book 1 and book 4. Those Marvel comics are tremendous, and I hear that now, since the rights for those comics have actually reverted back to King's personal publisher, I believe it's Scribner, if I'm not mistaken, they're about to start re-releasing those. I think they've actually started the process. They did 3 different runs. So there was basically the one with much younger Roland, which was those, oh boy, it's either 5 or 6 books, I forget. But then there was, and so that was like the Gunslinger Born run. And then there was a second run, which was just called The Gunslinger, which was adapting the first book, but yet filling in the gaps in an interesting fashion. And that was, King and King's Dark Tower historian Robin Firth working directly with those actual writers at Marvel as consultants to make sure the tone was right, everything was like canon accurate, so to speak. And then they did a third run, which was called The Drawing of the Three, which in a lot of ways combined story elements from both The Drawing of the Three and The Wastelands together, and also gave cool supplemental, interesting additional bits of insight as well. So yeah, if you're intimidated, as I said, by like I said, just by going through these huge Dark Tower novels, maybe get your feet wet a little bit with with those Marvel comics. Just go and pick up, for instance, go and pick up the Gunslinger Born if you're curious about the world of the Dark Tower, especially Midworld, which is where yes, there's jumping back and forth between worlds that does happen in these books. But if you're just really curious about like the whole medieval fantasy with some sci-fi and horror blended in there, I mean, you can't go wrong with just getting Roland's backstory as a young lad, trying to win his pistols and everything in the Gunslinger Born. It's dope. Jump on Amazon, eBay, buy it. Go to your actually no, don't go to your local bookstore. I don't know. I guess you can't really condone going out into public places right now. That's considered passe and in poor taste. But yes, in any event, okay. Austin chimes back in and says, "At least Hey Jude still exists in Roland's world." Yeah, that's one thing that's interesting. And there were a lot more references to our world, in the original version of the Gunslinger up there. King removed a lot of them, actually, in this world that's moved on, this post-apocalyptic world. So, yeah, let's see what else we have here. Okay. Do you know if any other authors reference the Dark Tower? That's a very good question. I can't say that I know for sure. Joe Hill has referenced some of his Papa stuff, but aside from that, and also Joe Hill has the King has referenced his son as well. And this was something that I realized, and I think I mentioned it during the live stream when we had Mr. Mercedes as the book of the month. Oh, by the way, book of the month once again. Stephen King on writing. The Audible is actually read by King himself, and it's basically half life story, almost half autobiography, and then the other half is him giving you pointers about trying to write yourself and hearing El Rey actually, it's like he's talking directly to you, and it's terrific. Also, as far as Dark Tower stuff goes, King read the Audible for excuse me, Went Through the Keyhole 4.5, which is really cool. So but yeah, the reference I was going to mention before I forget is that in Mr. Mercedes, when they're at the boy band concert at the very end, one of the roadies is wearing a Judas coin shirt, and I have for the longest time wanted to make a Judas coin shirt. Someone steal my idea, probably, right? Okay. Okay. Austin chimes in once more, reading the Dark Tower comics now, almost done with the Gunslinger series. Reading the Stan comics now, seeing the times we are in. Haha. That's something I forgot to mention. So Marvel, after they did one of their runs of, I think it was the Gunslinger Born run of the Dark Tower comics, Marvel did a fantastic, and I should just jump off camera. Of course, I have this fatty deluxe edition, but Marvel, this is the best version of the Stand that this is the best adaptation of it, at least. Easily. I mean, and the art is super cool. We've got Homie on the front. Yeah, so this is their super deluxe omnibus. And so if you are looking to like just read something obviously that is much closer to what's really transpiring, as opposed to getting more escapist and maybe trying to make light of doomsday scenarios and situations and stuff like that. If you want to go for more of the real deal, yeah, and you're not really sure if. And some people think that 90s miniseries of The Stand is lame. I still love it. I actually just picked up that remastered Blu-ray that they put out. It fixes up a lot of the color. It beefs up some of the special effects, and I still stand by that 94 94 miniseries, man. The actor who played Larry Underwood, love that guy. It's an all-star cast with Gary Sinise and Molly Ringwald and MOON. That spells kid from Coach, and various others. It's an awesome ensemble cast. It's crazy because a lot of those characters, the way they were portrayed on screen and since it was my first interaction with The Stand as well, I will forever just envision a lot of those characters and their proverbial voices and all of that other stuff as having that inherent connection, But if you want the quintessential actual adaptation of The Stand, and you want to read it in these crazy similar times that we're experiencing, then this Marvel version, the omnibus collects the entire series, which had 5 or 6 different books, something like that. So each volume was a mini series and had 5 issues, I think, and then the final volume had 6 issues, which was called The Night Has Come. But it's wonderfully adapted, and it captures the R-rated tone, which is The Stand. The novel is very R-rated, especially the uncut version, which adds in a few specifically just gnarly, violent scenes of stuff. The kid being one. Oh man, and also a standoff with Dana, and where you just first discover those women who are basically being like held hostage as like sex slaves by these crazy violent bikers, and a shootout that goes down. Like neither of those were really to the degree. I don't think the second one with Dana was even in the actual original book. But so if you really want the most faithful adaptation, the quintessential adaptation, obviously we don't know if we're getting that CBS All Access adaptation this fall now or not. It'll eventually see the light of day, so we hope, fingers firmly crossed. But that's essentially the extent of that. But yeah, you can track them down as the big omnibus right here, or you can collect them volume collected individually. So that's the thing. But it's good call on rereading. So hey, sometimes people are into reading art that imitates the experiences that they're currently going through, and other times people need complete escapism and need to just get it off their minds, man. So okay, back to Austin's comments. Yeah, rereading the Stand comics. Okay, Gunslinger says The Long Road Home. Yeah, The Long Road Home. The stuff expanding with Jaime and everything, and just the fact that the Long Road Home, like, yes, we know that after the original Ka-Tet, of Bert and Elaine and Roland, they had to make their way back, from from all the stuff that went on at Hambry and everything. And it's interesting. I just love the way in those Dark Tower comics they expand upon just things there would be a tale to tell there. Also where just stuff that's only mentioned passingly. I mean, like Jericho Hill and things like that. To actually get to see that when King has never really, I mean, there's dream sequences and 5, if I remember correctly, and like bits and pieces here and there, but to see it fully realized and have his stamp of official canon approval is pretty friggin' cool, But if you want stuff that's very much like our current times, Scarolina Viper says the Stand comics are amazing. I advise Dead Zone. Yes, okay. Simon Reese says, hey, in Fuego, finished the Outsider series and liked it. Was worried about Holly having watched Mr. Mercedes, but thought it was an interesting interpretation of her character, a good adaptation. Yeah, and this is where, at this point, I can even be accepting of something like the Mist TV series. because it's a different turn of the wheel, man. You know, it's a different level of that proverbial tower and stuff like that. And so, I mean, it's like the difference is when they're in Topeka in book 4 and they see Nozzle Cola as opposed to Coca-Cola. You know, they see different car brands and stuff like that. So it's a world that's very, very similar to our own in a lot of ways. So a character that's very similar in this case from the one that, you know, like different turns of the wheel, different levels of that proverbial tower. Like we've got the source material, we have the Holly in Mr. Mercedes, the TV series for AT&T Network, and then AT&T Audience Network to specify, and then you have this new Holly Gibney. It's just a different, it's a different, you know, dimension of sorts for the storytelling. And I thought that actress / singer was fantastic in Bad Times at the El Royale. She was great in Harriet, and so I mean, yeah, she's very solid in it, you know, and she captures the eccentricities very well, and you know, despite some differences in a few things here and there. So okay, now with RJ Price mentioning insomnia, I was always intrigued by Atropos as a character. Dude was crazy, was a harbinger of brutal and painful death. Can't help but feel he is out there at the moment. Yeah, and he can only be seen by those who have not slept in how many days, you know, and are kind of going partially crazy. I know it's been kind of sleepless nights for me, and the panic level didn't really hit, at least here in the States, for a lot of people until two things really went down when they started canceling sports and canceling movies. Concert tours, stuff like that. That's when we started realizing, yeah, this shit's pretty heavy. So, okay, Gunslinger says epic, golden. That's the version I have. The companion is awesome. RJ Price, the Dark Tower series, and Insomnia. It's when I became an SK junkie. I have read him since a teenager, but when I saw the universe he fell and how everything connects to them, I was hooked. Yeah, as I've said on this program before, guys, and RJ and Jacob both know because I've had a lot of palaver with those two awesome dudes over the years. Yeah, it was when I realized the full daunting scope of not just the Dark Tower series, but how it connects with everything from The Stand to Salem's Lot to Insomnia, you know, the aforementioned, and various other pieces to a lesser degree. That's when I was like, okay, I am so into this. Shared universes are badass, and you know, King was doing it long before the MCU became this big thing, and then everyone wants a shared universe. And watch pitch meetings and Ryan George talking about shared universe. It's very funny. Okay, fantastic perspectives. Just started the graphic novels and degree. Awesome. Yeah, love the miniseries. Phenomenal. Okay. Yeah, Rob Lowe. Rob Lowe playing a deaf mute and yeah, not wanting to have sex with that bitchy girl. Anyway, Best Man in Black. There you go. Love that miniseries, especially the first half. What did you think of Flag's casting, says Larry. I actually was very down with the casting. I thought that guy, I forget the name of the actor, and I know he's done a few other things without a mullet. But nonetheless, I mean, he captured the feisty, almost, dare I say, whimsy and sarcasm of Flag, but also with that edge that you saw dwelling just below the surface. Like, I found his character fascinating, his snarkiness, but yet his bloodthirstiness. He brought balance to his portrayal, and I found it really impressive. And I'm very curious to see whenever it comes out at this particular point. I'm very curious to see how Skarsgård, you know, from True Blood, actually, like, what sort of a spin he brings to the character. Is he going to be charismatic, or which the way Randall Flagg is written, he is indeed charismatic, you know, and he's kind of a jokester in some ways, but he's bloodthirsty as well, obviously. So, I mean, he's always had more of like a stoicness to him that I as handsome as the dude is, okay, and he's played sexy and dark dude very, very well. I wonder if he has the range, dare I say, to really, or maybe he'll try to do something just much more chilling with the character and make it less jokey. I don't know. That would be that would be a different turn of the wheel. So we'll just leave it at that. But yeah. Okay. Jacob says still bummed out about the Dark Tower series being canceled. Was genuinely intrigued to see where that was going to go. At least we've still got the Stand to look forward to. Well, when it comes out, yeah, I'm hoping that the world medical community and everything will have a better handle on this, and that we won't necessarily see a delay. But Jacob, I don't think you were here, man. At least during the initial part of this broadcast where we talked about with the current events transpiring, would it be perceived in bad taste to put out a program that deals with billions dying from a virus, a flu sort of thing, across the planet? Would that be in bad taste? Very similar to what happened with The Hunt last fall, where, with all of the mass shootings that were going down, it was initially canceled, and then, of course, it ended up popping back up. So the Stand series it's eventually going to hit on CBS All Access because they finished filming it. Okay, they were in post-production. They have been for, I think, in like a month or more at this particular point. But yeah, I'm skeptical, to say the least, of them actually hitting that fall release schedule because it hadn't been dated. That's the one thing to keep in mind. So they said, fall 2020, and that's all that they had told us. So there wasn't a premiere date specifically set for any regions of the world just yet. And so, yeah, we'll see. We will see. I think a lot of it will have to do with just how quickly and effectively we are, Lord willing, man willing, whatever you believe in, able to get a better handle on the spread, the containment, and the treatment. So, okay, jumping to and we are past the 90-minute mark. Or just about there, from what I can see. So I am going to need to wrap this up, unfortunately, because I have some music jamming that I need to get down with. But this cat does this without cards or a monitor. Okay, I'm voting for this cat. Okay, opinion on Dune. King could do an awesome version of Dune. Yeah, I'm honestly extremely excited for Denis' take on Dune. I believe they finished filming that, but that is so far off in its release, not till December. I would hope that will be unaffected by all of this. We have to maintain the power of positivity in that regard. I've watched everything Denis Villeneuve, I believe is his last name, he's done. He crushed Blade Runner 2049, Sicario. Prisoners is intense. Prisoners is one of the most intense movies I've probably ever watched, man. I mean, the performances from Jackman and Dano and Gyllenhaal. I mean, that's up there with for Gyllenhaal. That performance is up there with Nightcrawler for me. I think those are his two best, personally. But yeah, I am super stoked for Dune. There's a lot of speculation. Could it be the next Lord of the Rings? Because Herbert's stories have enough lore. And the fact that his son Brian expanded so much on the universe, in a lot of people's estimation, to a lesser degree of quality, because he's just not as talented of a writer as his father, and he's really just working off notes and things of that nature. I had planned on rereading Herbert's original Dune sometime this year before the film comes out. I repurchased it. I've had a paperback for a long time, probably since like junior high. But yeah, I purchased a nice new hardcover of it. It's got maps and all this badass stuff in it. And I also have the Audible too. So I will probably read and listen at a couple different points in time. And yeah, if you guys are unfamiliar, I have my own YouTube channel called Fuego-tainment, and that's where I do the non-horror coverage. So yeah, when I do get around to reading Dune and reviewing it, it'll be on my own personal channel. So obviously, at the forefront for all the Cy King coverage, Hail to Stephen King and stuff like that. I mean, here is the place where you'll always be able to find it every Saturday. Anytime we go live, it'll be in the afternoon. Anytime it is a pre-taping, it will be on in the morning. Usually, I think we're sticking with 9 a.m. Pacific time and noon for the East Coast here in the States, at least. But So yeah, I mean, since we're past that 90-minute mark and everything, yeah, Night Surf is definitely one that I was planning to try to lightning round through a few different post-apocalyptic stories besides the, well, technically four that we talked about. You know, I had to talk at length about The Stand because that makes the most sense in this political wacky, or this political, this current, and there's some people who do have conspiracy theorist aspects about the nature of this, and you know, is it distractionary, is there any sort of, you know, I don't know. I'm not here to speculate about that kind of stuff. We're here talking Stephen King, guys. Okay, you know, obviously, if you have thoughts and theories, leave them in the comments below or whatever. But I mean, long story short, and most importantly, it is about just trying to help those heal who are in a scary, precarious situation, and try to limit, you know, just the spread of certain things. I'm calling it virus 19 at this particular point, via CV19. Yeah. Stephen King 19. My God, man. My God, man. But yeah, so that's essentially going to kind of wrap things up. You know, there's a few other kind of post-apocalyptic tales. You know, the one that I really did want to mention briefly, it's collected in Bizarre Bad Dreams. It was originally in Cemetery Dances, and it was an anniversary collection of some sorts. It's called Summer Thunder. And Summer Thunder is really the one other shorter tale that I wanted to make mention of. And yes, there's Night Surf. Yes, there's even stuff like Graduation Afternoon from Just After Sunset that would make a lot of sense to reference. You know, that's about, you know, this graduation party, and a nuke hits, and it's just crazy, you know. But that's more the actual thing happening as opposed to seeing the aftermath. And you know, we're in the thick of it right now globally, and so we're still, you know, those tales wouldn't make as much sense. But Summer Thunder is about the last few people. It's one guy in particular. It's this guy, and then his dog, and he's friends with this dude down the way, and they're all the world has been destroyed by nuclear war, and it's basically them waiting to die from radiation poisoning. And I mean, having just watched Chernobyl recently, yeah, so in the stay at home and binge and read and all this other stuff, I watched Chernobyl finally because I just didn't have HBO. And so when I signed up for HBO, I started watching The Outsider, obviously, but then I was just like, I heard really good stuff about Chernobyl, man. I need to watch it. And I'm allowed to drop one of these during a live broadcast. Holy fuck. That show affected me so significantly. And yes, this isn't King related and whatnot, but I mean, dude, I knew about it, obviously, but just seeing it dramatized and seeing everything, I mean, I'm probably more familiar with like Fukushima stuff at this particular point, since that happened in my cognizant lifetime, as opposed to me being significantly younger. You know, I was a very little kid when Chernobyl went down. And yeah, ooh, powerful stuff there. But yeah, Summer Thunder, essentially, I mean, if you've ever read, oh boy, I think it was a story, and maybe they adapted it into a tale, into a film. It's called The Beach, or On the Beach, or something like that. I can't remember the title. Maybe you guys would know, but it's about all these people down in like Australia, if I remember correctly. And, you know, all of the nuclear war and the destruction and everything has transpired. And it's just like the radiation is like just traveling southward, you know, into the southern hemisphere towards them. And it's just all of these people bracing for the inevitable and knowing that they will eventually die from radiation poisoning from the spread of it. And Summer Thunder is one of those, like, you know, the end is coming stories, and it is heavy, man. It's really good. And aside from, you know, The Stand, Cell, Sleeping Beauties, and obviously The Dark Tower, in a world that has moved on in that regard, I just really wanted to give a shout out to Summer Thunder, because that is a terrific tale, and it's sad, you know. And this is, I mean, this entire situation is sad, you know, but we can't allow ourselves to get down and to, I mean, you must be aware and cognizant, but I mean, just letting yourself dwell upon everything too much will affect every other aspect of your life. And you know, I mean, the great thing about art in a lot of ways is it's a terrific distraction. And you know, you can immerse yourself in a world that, even if it's scary in a different way, or in some cases, these, as we've discussed, a similar fashion, you know, it's a great escape, you know. Also terrific movie. So that is going to be the end of things for us today, y'all. Reminder once again, the book of the month for the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group, where I am the sole admin and moderator on there, but I'm probably going to have to add another person or two, a couple people to the Ka-Tet at some particular point here in the near future, because as the Facebook group continues to grow and I just have trouble keeping an eye on every single post and every bit of discussion, I'm rather busy and I don't have time for all of that. It's inevitable and it is coming. But yes, if you want to have awesome palaver with fellow CRs and stuff like that, please jump on there. And yeah, all that I ask is that we keep it to the King clan. So we also talk Joe Hill stuff on there. There's been little bits here and there about like Owen and, you know, Tabby and stuff. But the book of the month for March, which the next live broadcast will not be until the beginning of April at this particular point. This was special circumstances, special situation. Well, not special, startling, scary situation, but let's say unique circumstances, you know. And so that's why you're getting an extra bonus live show today, because I just really wanted to go live, really wanted to interact with all of you specifically. But yes, Stephen King on Writing is the book of the month for March, and at the beginning of April we will have our next live stream discussing all of this. But I've been Jaime and Fuego, and y'all can find more on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. As I mentioned, just search Infuegotainment or youtube.com/Jaime in Fuego. But obviously, you're here on The Horror Show. Please like, share, subscribe, do your due diligence in that regard. It is supremely appreciated. We are at nearly 32,000 subscribers now. Damn, right? I mean, just building the beast over all of this time has been just humbling and honoring. And I mean, when I joined The Horror Show in season 2, we had like barely 500 subscribers. And honestly, Stephen King has had a lot to do with the growth of this channel. And yes, I look forward to seeing all of you next Saturday for Hail to Stephen King, obviously. And then lastly, every Monday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, I am very stoked to take part in a program called Show Business on the Willis Greedy YouTube channel. That's where we discuss weekend box office. And this will probably be the last weekend for quite some time that we have box on. Like, I don't know if we're going to put the show on hold or hiatus or whatever without like a lot of film, because Hollywood is basically just like the sporting world at a standstill right now, you know. But yeah, at least this Monday, you know, please tune in on the Willis Greedy YouTube channel for Show Business, where myself, the showrunner over there, CP Chauncey K. Robinson, who is a Rotten Tomatoes certified critic in LA, and yes, her fellow City of Angels dweller, Lindsay Mimsey, as I affectionately call him from my 2 cents of nonsense. We usually discuss weekend box office and all kinds of film news. We're definitely going to have a lot to talk about in further detail this upcoming Monday. But yeah, that is all for today, everyone. So I extend a grande gracias, as I always do. And yeah, you know what's coming. Until the Wheel of Ka comes around once more, I say hasta luego, sin amigos, and constant readers and viewers alike say thank you. But I am hopeful that we get to share more of this palaver sooner rather than later. And until that instance occurs, remember to stay scared and read Stephen King. I mean, read, watch, whatever. Y'all got the time now. Coolness, everyone. I know this was an impromptu stream and kind of spur of the moment, but it really means a lot that all of you tuned in for some of this discussion. It was super cool. And yes, okay, that's yep. Oh, and it was a troll after all. Ha ha ha.